Namaste, everyone, and welcome. Today we continue with Grandmaster Cho's book on regreso pranic healing. We call this Back to Basics, as we go back to the foundational teachings of pranic healing, the energy body, and esoteric teachings. Before we start, let's ask for divine blessing, shall we? To the Divine Supreme God, Divine Father, Divine Mother, to all the spiritual elders, holy masters, to all the saints, archangels, holy angels, spiritual helpers, personally to my teacher, Master Tuakoksui Mahaguji Meiling, we humbly invoke for divine light, divine love, guidance, help, healing, and divine protection. We thank you in full faith, so be it. All right, so before we start, as you know, we always do our cleansing so that it purifies the aura and the chakras, and we become more absorbent for the information. All right, so tap your crown, press the center of your palms, focus on your feet, 5 areas, crown, hands, and feet. So as the divine energy comes down, as we chant Om, we let it flush out all the stress and negative energy out of our system. All right, so just open your palms, take a deep breath. Om. Om. Just be super receptive. Allow all the negative energy to be dissolved, disintegrated, expelled by the pouring of the divine energy. Om. Om. Just be still, be aware. Just let the energy flow through you. Flushing out any negative thoughts, negative emotions, any blockages. Dissolve, disintegrate, extract, expel properly. So be it. Just let it flow. So be it. All right. Open your eyes. Shake it off. All right. When you get a chance, have a seat and pull out your book. All right. We are on the chapter on the chakras. Now, as we mentioned last time, do your best when you're doing this to have all the books available. We have the Miracles of Pranic Healing. We're going to refer to Pranic Psychotherapy, and we're going to refer to the advanced book. And this one here, which I hope all of you will get, is the compilation on the chakras. All right, and we're going to refer to that also. Now, so far when we talk about the chakras, we try to be as thorough as possible. We go to the physiological functions, how it affects you physically, emotionally, mentally, and spiritually. So we're doing the same thing with the sex chakra. We were working with the basic chakra, how it is important for it to energize your bones, your muscles, blood, body temperature, as well as a psychological function with survival instinct. Remember that? And we also partially talk about that's where the Kundalini energy is located, which as it rises up to the upper chakras, help your brain, your nervous system be able to register high spiritual signals. That's why it's related to your spiritual development. Okay, so now we continue with the sex chakra. Now, if you go to that page, this is page 21, at least in this version of the book, it says the sex chakra. This chakra is located at the pubic bone area. So let's just have some images here for you. It's right on the pubic bone area. It controls and energizes the sexual organs in the bladder. Malfunction of the chakra manifests as sex-related problems. The Ajna chakra, throat, and basic have a strong influence on the sex chakra. Okay, Ajna, throat, basic. Just keep that in mind. Malfunction of any of these chakras may result in malfunction of the sex chakra. In other words, they're all interrelated. That's obvious. Now, what we're going to do is just going to give you a quick summary, as you go to the different books. Essentially, you learn this when you go to the pranic healing classes. When you energize the sex chakra, in other words, as the energy center, when energy goes into your sex center, it goes primarily to 3 places. Okay, part of it goes down the legs. So it energizes your legs. If you have knee problems, hip problems, let's say leg problems, anything from the sex chakra in that surrounding area and down, anytime there's any kind of physical issues, disorders, blockages, somebody has a, what do you call this, a fracture, anything that needs healing in those areas, in addition to topically working in those, the sex chakra has to be worked on. The question is why? Because when the energy goes in from the sex chakra, it goes to the pelvic floor. That's called the perineum. We talked about it in the earlier segments, where oftentimes when you read books on chakras, number one, they only talk about 7. And you read one version, it says, no, the root chakra is in the perineum area, right, the pelvic floor. Some people say, no, it's in the sex chakra area, in the pubic bone. Some say it's in the pelvic, the coccyx area. They cannot make up their mind. You know why? Again, they're trying to force it into 7, when in reality it's a loop. Just a short review. From the front of the body, it goes down like this, it loops this way, and the chakras are distributed all along it. The sex chakra is in the front, right? The sex chakra is in the front, the basic chakra is in the back, the perineum, which is a minor chakra, small, is facing down. Just like the crown is facing up, the perineum is facing down. Now that said, if this is the sex chakra, when the energy goes in, it has to go to the perineum. From the perineum, it goes down the legs. Okay, that said, if you need to work on anybody with knee problem, leg problem, or foot problem, whatever, in addition to working those areas, you have to clean and energize the sex chakra and the perineum so the energy will flow downwards. Okay, now, you also notice as a person gets older, the body gets older, what happens? Most people, the sex drive goes down, and the knees and legs are also getting weaker. This is related simply because, at least energetically, that's how the energy is flowing. So when the sex chakra becomes smaller, it draws less energy, so obviously not as much energy go down. I think that's easy to understand. The second part is when energy goes to the sex chakra, it energizes the bladder and the reproductive organs. Okay? Now, I remember the first time I took pranic healing, this was 1988, and one of my classmates, I think she was telling the whole class, her son is 14 years old and still wetting his bed. Could you imagine that? In other words, at night, he could not control his bladder, so the doctor pretty much can't do anything. They said, oh, it's not psychological, he's just born with a weak bladder. And I remember at that time, the topic was brought up, and Grandmaster just said, okay, clean, sweep and energize the sex chakra every night. So that's what the mother did. And if I remember correctly, I think we met her again a week or 2 weeks later, and she was giving a testimony. She says, her son, who was wetting his bed, and she would clean and energize his sex chakra every night. And within a week, the son stopped wetting his bed. And at that time, I remember Master Cho saying, well, you see, since the sex chakra is weak, the physical aspect, the bladder is weak. So when the sex chakra is cleansed and energized, enough energy went in, the bladder got stronger. So that's how it's affecting the reproductive organs physically, all right? And then, of course, the reproductive organs there, the bladder is there. Now, the third part is when you energize the sex chakra, it goes up to the throat and into the brain. Okay, now, this is where we deal with the emotional, psychological, and then spiritual aspects of the sex chakra. So I would like you to turn to this book, if you can, and it's quite lengthy, and I would recommend that you really read it. We'll just give you a quick summary so you can go through each of the chakras and you have an overall idea. But if you get a chance, again, I would recommend you read the teacher's books. I'm just here to be like a tutor. I'm just there, okay, a little bit of attention here, but it's not a substitute for you studying the book, all right? So, he says, a strong, healthy sex chakra is needed for spiritual development. Sex energy can be transmitted into love and spiritual oneness. Okay. That's one. And another part here, he says, the sex chakra is the center for sexual instinct. The throat chakra is center for higher creativity. This is the high correspondence of the sex chakra. These two are closely interconnected. This is why highly artistic and very intelligent people tend to have very strong sex drives. All right. So let's just kind of summarize the whole thing. Essentially, when the energy goes to the sex chakra, part of it's transmuted upwards. Now, when you talk about transmuted, essentially you're going from a lower vibration to a higher vibration. Now, you already know, we studied this in science, energy can neither be created nor destroyed, only transformed or changed in state. So just imagine, this is the way Master Joe explained it, is if you have a hydroelectric plant, you have a wheel turning with water, let's say from waterfall hitting it, right? It's turning. So as this is turning, you use a certain instrument that changes that mechanical energy into electricity. Isn't that how hydroelectric plants work, right? So that mechanical energy turns into electrical energy. Not very different than your car. If you have a hybrid, you have the mechanical movement, turning a motor, right? It's changing to mechanical energy, electrical energy. In a similar sense, when it goes from the hydroelectric plant, turns to electrical energy, gets to your house, your lights turn electrical energy into light energy. Your sound system turns that electrical energy into sound energy, and so on and so on. And then from there, you can also power up your vacuum cleaner, your dishwasher, so it can be changed from one state to the other. All right. So just imagine, from the sex chakra, it vibrates at a certain frequency. It's a certain type of energy. As it moves through the chakras, as it hits the heart, the chakra is the heart chakra is chakra of love. So as that sexual energy touches the heart, that sexual energy is now transformed into love. When it goes up to the throat, okay, that chakra turns it into creative energy. As that energy goes to the crown, it becomes spiritual energy. So one of the things that people don't realize, in society they look at, sex in the movies and, the desire for other people. But in the very fundamental sense, every chakra produces a certain frequency. And that's not very different with the sex chakra. So what you call sexual desire is basically a certain frequency that's flowing into your system. So when the focus is on the sex chakra, well, you're sexually excited. That's obvious. But when that energy is moving up, when it hits the heart chakra, and let's say you're with someone you care about, not only is there a sexual desire, if the heart chakra is sufficiently activated and enough of that sexual energy got transmuted, then the attraction is not just physical, there's also an intensifying of the love between two people. You get the idea? Now, when that sexual energy goes up to the throat area, it turns the throat chakra even more active, so the person becomes more creative. Now, one thing that we always try to clarify, which is, again, in the book, the sex chakra is the lower creative center. The throat chakra is the high creative center. What exactly does that mean? When you're painting, you're drawing, you're creating in the emotional, mental world, aren't you? Right? You paint a beautiful picture. In order for it to hit on canvas or on whatever you're painting on, what happens? This image of beauty has to be in your mind, and you're transferring it over. When you're dancing, you're singing, you're using your body to create something very artistic, very beautiful, very inspiring. When you're writing a novel, you're being creative. In other words, this is your baseline. From there, you bring out your emotions, your feelings, your thought to create something. So the act of creation creates immaterially, non-materially. Your sex chakra creates materially, babies. So what people don't realize, these two actually work together. So if you scan, why don't you try it now? Press the center of your palms. Okay, go like this. Try to feel, okay? Just scan the diameter, say my throat chakra. Now go down. Just scan your sex chakra. Just try to feel the diameter. All right. Now put your hands down, close your eyes. Imagine yourself drawing, painting, singing, or anything very artistic. Just visualize yourself doing it. All right. Good enough. Take your hands up. Start a little further out, come in. You notice the throat chakra got wider. If you go down, scan your sex chakra. It also gets wider. One triggers the other. So every time you're painting, you're drawing, the throat chakra expands. It sends a signal to the sex chakra. The sex chakra spins faster. The sex chakra supports it. Now, that's the same reason why throughout history, if you look at people who are very artistic, they also had very passionate lives. Right? It's their passion that produces this wonderful art. But people don't realize this passion is a combination of different types of energy. There you have the raw creative force of the sex chakra, right? Then it moves up, it takes some of the energy from the solar plexus. If they have been hurt before, they use that emotional pain, mixed with a little bit creative force from the sex chakra. By the time it hits the throat, guess what happens? You have this amazing art where it's able to take a person from something very depressing to very elating, right? That's because the throat chakra took the energy from below, transformed it into something creative in art. Same thing with music, right? Some people, I know this particular musical, what do you call it, a very famous singer. And she told me, she said, she's one of the people who received healing from me. She said, it is because of her pain from her past that she can produce so beautiful songs. She can sing with so much passion. Well, it's obvious. Between you and me, when we understand how chakras work, right? The throat chakra is like not the microphone, the speaker. But the material that comes out of the throat comes from somewhere else. From the sex chakra, that raw creative force, it moves up. It takes some of the emotional pain from the solar plexus, from the intense love and passion, not passion, but the intimacy she has for some of these people. That energy moves up. Her consciousness puts it all together. By the time it comes out of it, comes the sex chakra through her mouth, it's touching. You see what I'm saying? So you have to look at it. There are different types of energy. And now, of course, in a lot of spiritual traditions, they tell you to be celibate. And that's where the spiritual aspect comes in. So that sexual energy has to go up to the upper chakras. By the time it hits the brain and the crown chakra, it's transmuted or transformed into spiritual energy. Now, he covers this in more detail. I'm just giving a quick summary. The problem with giving instructions without reason is sometimes a person can take it to extreme. For example, I know one person. She was a nun, a sister in a Roman Catholic Church, and she said her and quite a number of her colleagues, nuns and sisters, had hysterectomies. All right, so that means the entire uterus was removed, and a bunch of their friends or their colleagues that were priests also had prostate problems. And at that time, they had no idea why. For them, it's just they accepted it. And when this lady came to pranic healing, Master Cho explained to her, she said, here's the problem. You were taught to be celibate, as in no sexual partner, no sexual release, and if you ever engage in sexual thoughts, you're committing sin. Some of you know what I'm talking about. He said, here's the problem. You are taught these things, but you were never taught what to do with that energy. Now, you realize when energy goes to the sex chakra, it goes to three places. Remember? Down the legs, reproductive organs, part of it naturally wants to go up. But if you look at sexual energy as something bad, dirty, icky, whatever, instead of that energy being able to flow, it's suppressed. So just imagine if it's suppressed year after year after year, what happens? Instead of that energy flowing, it builds. It builds. So if this is the aura, what happens? It becomes super congested. In other words, the energy becomes stale and sits there. Well, obviously, if you have a propeller that's spinning and then you put thick dirt on it, it's not able to spin faster, correct? So that means energy gets stuck and it builds, it builds, it builds. Well, what do you expect? Physically, it could cause physical ailments. It's just like if you pick somebody with a severe ailment, a lot of these ailments have severe congestion. Well, energetically, that congestion caused by an injury or a particular ailment is going to almost look the same as congestion from this person who sexually suppressed their feelings. So you have a big bulge, right, of all dirty energy. Now, the physical organs that's connected to the sex chakra, including the bladder, including the uterus, in the case of a woman, right? In the case of men, testicles, the penis, and so on and so on, how do you expect them to perform properly? Because energy is clogging the channels. So physical ailments. Then, what else could happen? The sex chakra, remember, normally it flows upwards to make you very creative, right? Let you express, and then goes up to the crown to let you experience peace. So it's proper functioning in the brain too. Well, if it gets stuck there, what happens? The person becomes sexually distorted. So that's why, here's how the teacher taught it. If you put one hand here, this is being super celibate, sex is dirty, and so on and so on. On the other side is what? Free love. Sex, how many times a day? No conservation for spiritual purpose. you have two extremes. One, energy doesn't flow. The second one, there's nothing to flow because everything's gone. Well, what did the Lord Buddha teach? The middle path. So if you do the middle path, you have enough to satisfy yourself or your partner. At the same time, you have enough for spiritual development. Essentially, that's the first part of when we talk about the spiritual aspects of sexual energy. So this movement of energy is very, very important. Another thing, we share this in Arhatic Yoga, in the spiritual classes. So I'll just give you a little bit of an introduction. So in Arhatic Yoga, you're taught how to properly transmute this energy, how to move that energy properly so that it can feed. It can feed the chakras. It goes up, so when it hits your heart, you become more loving, goes to your throat, you become more creative, gets to your crown, you have deeper spiritual experiences. And it's done in such a way that it's systematic. When I say systematic, it's not like, oh, I'll do it now and then when I feel like it. If you do it systematically, it's just like irrigating your plants systematically. They grow at a certain pace. Okay, that's one. Number two, and this is taught in more advanced classes, but this is just an introduction, essentially, to point you in the right direction. All right, put your hand like this. Right hand. Say sexual energy. Okay, take your left hand. Say Kundalini energy. So this Kundalini energy that is talked about in a lot of spiritual books actually is a passenger to a vehicle called sexual energy. So just imagine you have an elevator, or in Europe you call it the lift. This is the way it was explained to me by one of the clairvoyants, Mang Mike, the clairvoyant that worked with Master Cho. Essentially, the Kundalini energy rides the sexual energy to the upper chakras. So when a lot of spiritual schools say you have to be celibate, unless they describe this to you, they say, oh, because it's dirty, because you shouldn't be attached to material things and, something so physical like sex. But the deeper reason is because you have to have enough of this, so as it moves upward, it will take the Kundalini energy upward, giving you that spiritual experience. Okay? So the key is this. With understanding, there's no fanaticism. What did I say? With understanding, there's no fanaticism. You say, okay, sex is good, it's natural, it's pleasurable. Okay, I have to satisfy my partner, and so on and so on. But at the same time, you have to think, all right, that's good, but at least I still should not forget my spiritual development and the proper functioning of my brain. So there has to be enough sexual energy to move upwards to the upper chakras. So there's a balance between conserving sexual energy by choice and understanding, yes, at the same time having pleasure. Balance. Now, one more. When you practice super brain yoga, okay, some of you are new, try to get a hold of the books, wherever your spiritual, your Arhatic Yoga or pranic healing centers are, you'll know about super brain yoga. Super brain yoga is a technique that's taught to the general public on how to transmute the sexual energy. So get a hold of the book, where you put your hands in the proper place, you inhale down, exhale up. That technique there actually transmutes that sexual energy that allows you to become smarter. It improves your memory. A lot of children, our daughter is one of them, is able to help children with autism, with ADD, ADHD, difficulty learning, improving memory. That's because the creative force is going up, 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 and charging your brains. Okay? So, as you can see, sexual energy from the sex chakra is not just sex for pleasure. It actually covers a whole big spectrum of things that happen in your life. It affects you on your relationship. For example, if you get a whole book, Achieving Oneness with the Higher Soul, Master also talks about the sexual energy is not just for physical pleasure. When you truly care for about the person, your partner, that sexual energy moves to the heart and the connections on the heart. So you look at the person, not just something, like an animal, something material. You also feel like there's a strong emotional connection and love. And then when it moves up to the upper chakras, guess what? You start seeing, oh, this is a spiritual being in front of me. This is a child of God. This is a soul. This is a being of light. And since you all have all that energy moving upwards, when that energy hits your brain and your nervous system, your brain nervous system, with the Kundalini energy brought up by the sexual energy, your sensitivity to high frequencies become more enhanced. So guess what happened? When that happens, you look at your partner, not just something for physical pleasure, not just to have someone for companionship. Guess what? You look at them as a representation of God. You feel such a strong connection that you merge with them as one being. Then that's what you call oneness, isn't it? So you love them not just for the physical person, someone who makes you feel good, somebody who nourishes you emotionally and mentally, but you literally see the essence of God in this person. You see that? So I hope that just this short lesson today gives you a little bit of a start on understanding the deeper aspect of the chakras. And the next one we're going to work on is the navel. So we're done with the sex chakra. I would recommend you read these books. Again, it was just a short summary. I hope it stirs up your interest in learning more. Okay? That's good. Let's give thanks to the Divine Supreme God, Divine Father, Divine Mother. We thank you for the great, great blessings. We thank you. To my teacher, Master Chokok Sui, Mahaguji Mailing, all the great ones, holy gurus, holy masters, saints, archangels, holy angels, spiritual helpers, we thank you for your great blessings. In full faith, so be it. All right. So, thank you. Next one we go to is, the book says Main Men, and then Navel. Okay. Well, we'll do either one. Just make sure you show up. Other than that, please leave your comments here. We always love to hear from you. Hope you did learn something. And again, this ministry is free. We don't charge anyone anything for it. If you'd like to give a donation to just help cover the cost, that way we can expand, upgrade, what do you call those? Anyway, I forgot the term, spacing out here. Essentially, the process on how this is served to more people, bigger bandwidth and so on and so on, that'd be great. Okay, if not, that's fine. We'll continue to do it. And as we always say, if you can come to the classes for whatever reason, right, but you want to continue studying the teacher's teaching until you're ready to come back and fellowship with other students, which is very, very important, we come to you. And one last thing, this is the part that people usually forget. You study at home, right, on your own, do these videos, the books and everything, right? But it is in practicing with others, interacting with others, that you truly internalize the teachings. So join the nearest pranic healing center or Hatha Yoga center in your area, right? Participate. Look at it this way. I'll be very blunt. Okay, you read this, you watch, oh, this is interesting. But you don't do anything with it. So what? You're just walking encyclopedia. You get my point? You learn to receive, you have to learn to give. And that's how you grow. Okay? So on that, Atma, Namaste. Thank you very much for joining us. We'll see you next time. Bye.